Good morning everyone, it's Beer speaking. It's Tuesday morning, it's the 20th of June 2017. Time is about 9 o'clock GMT time when I made this little video clip. Starting off with the Euro US dollar, we're going to look at the daily chart. The reason why we're looking at the daily chart, we can see the 4 hours mixed. The daily tells us that it's still long. Last week we had a little movement, guys. We only closed 3 pips higher than the opening. So if we flip the previous month from the low to the high, then we've got a trading zone starting at 1069 coming down to 0954. In the trading zone we've got this 55 EMA at 1071, so that can be the first support area in the trading zone. We have a psychological level here and a pivot point. That is the monthly support pivot point. As the month progresses, the days go past, this 200 EMA, which is the daily 200 EMA, will move to the upside. So that can maybe hold later hands with this pivot point. Now that will be the areas in the trading zone to look for longs. However, at the 38.2 FIP at 1124, we have a roadblock as well. The reason for it is that we have a monthly main pivot point there. We have a psychological level, plus we have a 4-hour 200 EMA. So keep your eyes on that for a roadblock for possible longs. If we do get into longs, take note of this 55 at 1194 as it can give a roadblock. If that breaks, next line in the sands will be 1299 for profit take area. Possible counter trades, look at this level at 1299. Otherwise, if we break to the upside, 1396 for possible short setups. And then once again, keep your eyes on this 4-hour 55 EMA as possible profit take area. Now if we look at the negative correlated US dollar, CHF, also at the daily chart, look at this 4-hour mix. Daily tells us to short. We can't flip the 4-hour because last week we closed 40 pips higher than the opening, so we have to flip the daily. If we do that, we flip from the high to the low. Then we've got a zone 9852 going up to 9972. Year 2, look at this. This one is more clearer than the Euro US dollar. Big roadblock at the 38.2 FIP. We have a Bollinger Band. We have a psychological level. We have the 55 EM coming down. We have a monthly pivot point plus a 200 EMA. So this is a big roadblock. So if this one is going to find resistance here, the negative correlated Euro US dollar will find support in this area. And that is what Mark always say. If you want to trade the Euro US dollar, also keep your eyes on the US dollar CHF. Euro JPY 4-hour chart. If you look at this chart, everything tells us that we need to look for longs, the 4-hour and the daily. Last week we closed 75 pips higher than the opening. So if we flip this from the bottom to the top on the 4-hour, and look at this guys, after my write-up this morning we made a new high, so we have to honor it, follow it with the flip so that the zone can move. Currently we have a zone at 123.52 coming down to 122.96. In the zone, the 200 EMA at 123.42, I will look for support. If that breaks, then definitely this weekly pivot point, psychological level plus a 55 daily EMA. Here too, before we get to the zone at 38.2 FIP at 123.78, there's our first roadblock. Reason why is it a roadblock? If we look to the left, previous support resistance, weekly main pivot point is there, plus we have a 4-hour 55 in the same area, so that will be our first roadblock. What can you guys spot on this chart? Look at the Bollinger Bands, look at the price, look at MACD. We have MACD divergence. We're highly overbought, so we're expecting a possible correction. Remember, MACD divergence is an early warning sign that there's a possible correction coming. If we do find a counter trade, look at 124.64, 125.03 for counter short back to this 55 at 123.84. If you look at the Euro Pound daily chart, I'm looking at the daily chart. Reason for it, last week we closed 19 pips lower than the opening. But everything tells us that we need to look for longs. We can't flip the 4-hour, so we have to jump to the daily. If we do that, we flip from the bottom to the top. Then we've got a zone starting at 8623, coming down to 8502. In the zone, we've got a monthly pivot point, psychological level, and a 200 EMA. So that will be my areas where I will look for longs in the trading zone. However, here too, before we get to the zone, we have a roadblock at the 38.2 FIP. Remember, we're not only looking at the 38.2 FIP, we need multiple reasons. If the 38.2 FIP is there alone, it's not enough reasons. But here we have a Bollinger Band, we've got a 200 EMA and a 55 EMA moving up. So that is now multiple reasons. So keep our eyes on that level, 8681, 8657 for possible longs on this one. Price going sideways, we're camping out at 8760. Going sideways, possible counter trades, look at 8858 on this one. Why there? Monthly pivot point and also previous support resistance on that one. If you look at the pound US dollar 4-hour chart, hey, look at this, guys. This morning when I did my write-up, we were in this area. Yeah, price now broke to the downside. Put a trend line there, that broke now to the downside. I'm a little bit weary of the pound, guys. There's just enough. There's so much stuff coming from the UK, and we just don't know what we can believe. If we look at the direction indicator, it tells us to look for shorts on the 4-hour, but the daily is mixed. Last week we closed 36 pips higher in the opening, so we're quite flat. Now, while this 200 holds here, okay, at 2822, my bias will be to short. But earlier in the week, we in this area here, so we couldn't FIP the 4-hour from the high to the low to get the Earth and Sky trading zone because we were already at last week's high. We can't FIP the daily is mixed. So what did I do? I moved another week back and I FIP from that high area to this low area here to get an Earth and Sky trading zone. Now, before the zone starting at 2808 going up to 2894, we've got a hell of a lot of EMAs. So keep your eyes on 2754 going up basically to 2822 for possible short setups. But be careful, as I said, it's the pound. The correlated pound JPY 4-hour chart here, I missed this totally, guys. I was so flippin' concentrated on shorts on this one that I totally missed this inverted head and shoulder pattern. Can you guys spot here? That was the head, that was the left shoulder, that was the right shoulder. So it's an inverted head and shoulder. That is the neckline. Last week the neckline broke. Okay, we broke to the upside, but we went straight into these EMAs. Okay, I didn't want to touch it because we're going through to these EMAs that can give resistance. So I totally missed this inverted head and shoulder pattern. Now, if we measure this head and shoulder pattern from that area there to down here, it's a 224 pip move. So if we do take the breakout, 224 will bring us to this area here at 143. It's a psychological level, it's a weekly pivot point. If you look left of the chart, previous support resistance, so possible shorts can set up there. But what happened this morning? 200 EMA, Bollinger Band coming down, and there's big push down. We touched that level, we broke to the downside. So be very, very careful with the pounds. You can see how wild it was. Yeah, now, and this candle here was 117 pip 4-hour candle. Aussie US dollar 4-hour chart. Here, everything tells us to look for longs. 4-hour tells us to look for long daily. Last week we closed 89 pips higher than the opening, so we can FIP the 4-hour. We FIP from the bottom to the top. Then we've got a zone 7578 coming down to 7550. In the zone, we have a 55 at 7566, and that will be my first area to look for longs. Otherwise, 7449. If for some strange reason we break 7549 to the downside, this will be the next line in the sand for me to look for longs. We have two 200 EMAs there, 55 EMA, and if we look to the left of the chart, previous support resistance. Now we stuck in a triangle. That was a tongue twister. We stuck in a triangle and we're busy breaking to the upside. So take note of that. Counter trade 7655. Why there? Because it was last week's high area. If we do break to the upside, it's definitely at 7662 for possible counter trades on that one. Aussie JPY, look at this, guys. When I did my write-up, now we made a new high, so we have to honor it, follow it with the FIP so that the zone can move. Everything tells us here to go long. We mixed on the daily. Last week we closed 149 pips higher than the opening, so we're pushing up. So we can FIP the 4-hour from the bottom to the top. We have a zone at 83.83 coming down to 83.21. In the zone, look at this. We have a 55, 83.72, 83.55, we have a 200, another 55 at 83.50, and this 200 EMA at 83.54. So that will be my levels where I would look for longs on this one. Now what can you guys spot on the chart? We're highly overbought. We have MACD that's trending down, stochastic trending down. We have divergence on both these indicators. Prices trending up. We're at a psychological level, so look out for possible counter trades from 85.01 and 85.31 on this one, Aussie JPY. Looking at the US dollar JPY daily chart, I'm going to look at the daily chart, guys. The 4 hour tells us to look for longs. The daily is mixed. Last week we closed 59 pips higher than the opening. And the reason why I'm still looking for shorts is the US dollar index. If we look at the US dollar index, we're still in a downtrend on the daily. And this is a big roadblock for it. 97.67 going up to 97.87. So if that index gets resistance there, then this one will also get resistance, probably here at 111.83. However, I will prefer if we can break all these cluster EMAs to the downside. We've got two 200 EMAs and a 55 EMA there. And while that gives us support there, be careful. Rather wait for that levels to break. Possible shorts then will follow. Look for M2 trade where price breaks these levels, pull back to it. M2 short setup, then to go follow to the downside. Possible counter trades 109.27 and this psychological level here of 109. US dollar CAD 4 hour chart, everything tells us to look for shorts. Last week we had a big drop. We closed 241 pips lower than the opening. We can flip the 4 hour from the high to the low in the zone. 33.16 going up to 33.92. We have a 200 EMA here at 33.57. Just on the other side of the zone, or before we get to the zone, at 33.04, we have a psychological level and a 55 EMA. Let me just move to the 1 hour, go back so the line can move. Look at that, the 55 holds hands with that psychological level. So we've got also a weekly pivot point at the 38.2 FIP. Look to the left, previous support resistance. So this can be our first roadblock between 3280 and 3301 for short setups. If that breaks, keep your eyes on this 200 EMA at 3357. US dollar index, as I showed you, everything tells us to short. We mix on the 4 hour. Daily main trend is still down, so if we flip the daily from the high to the low, we've got a zone 98.08 going up to 98.97. In the zone we have a 55 EMA psychological level at the 50% FIP. But we have a roadblock area from 97.67 going up to 98.08, this area here. So look for shorts in that area. If for some reason we break 98.02 to the upside, next line definitely will be 98.93. It's a monthly pivot point. The 200 EMA is there and previous support resistance. But this is key for me, guys. 97.67 going up to 98.02. The correlated US dollar, Singapore dollar looking exactly the same. Main trend down. 4 hours mixed. Last week we only closed 11 pips lower than the opening, so we have to flip the daily because we're quite flat. Plus we mix on the 4 hour. If we flip the daily from the previous month's high to the low, then we've got a zone starting at 3915 going up to 4022. But we have a problem area, roadblock area. We have a 200 EMA and a 55 EMA and a psychological level starting from the 38.2 FIP at 3865. So this will be a roadblock area, 3856 going up to 3915. That's the big roadblock area for this one. If we break to the upside, keep your eyes on that 200 EMA at, what's that, 3969. 200 EMA is there, previous support resistance. But for now, between 3865 and 3915, big roadblock for this pair. Any questions, please pop to the forum, leave a note there. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Have an awesome one. Cheers.